Hi, everybody. Welcome to my weekly author chat. I'm your host, Courtney Pearson. I'm a USA Today best-selling author of fantasy romance. I also write clean romance as Caitlin Meadows. I'm so excited. This is a new venture for me, these weekly author chats. I'm going to add a caveat to that because they are starting out as weekly. I'm going to see how they go with my schedule. They may end up being monthly, but I'm excited to feature new authors who also write clean romance. And today, my guest is Tara Grace Ericson. Hi, Tara.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks so much for being here. So before we dive in, I'm going to read Tara's bio so we can learn a little more about you. So Tara Grace Ericson lives in Missouri with her husband and three sons. She studied engineering and worked as an engineer for many years before embracing her creative side to become a full-time author and mom. She loves cooking, crocheting, and reading books by the dozen. She also loves a good happily ever after with an engaging love story. I love that too. That's why Tara focuses on writing clean contemporary romance and romantic suspense with an emphasis on Christian faith and living. She wants to encourage her readers with stories of men and women who live out their faith in tough situations. I feel like your books are just inspiring. Is that kind of why you chose this genre? You wanted to help others?
Yeah, I just love to read clean and Christian romance. And so when I started writing a story that had been kind of swirling around in my head, that was what came out on the paper. So I just love, knowing that the story is going to be engaging, but also that I'm not going to encounter anything that I don't want to see, like language or on page intimacy or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. I love that too. I kind of wish books had a rating system like movies do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that needs to become a thing. Awesome. Before we dive in and talk more about your series and your books, is there like a fun fact that it doesn't have to do with writing, it can just be anything that readers may not know about you?
Oh boy. Well, so I am living in Missouri now, but I actually grew up in Nebraska. And so I am a diehard Nebraska Cornhusker football fan, which is difficult these days because they have not been very good.
Oh, wow. No, that's awesome. I've driven through Nebraska. That's the extent of my
Yeah.
experience there.
The interstate system, yes, most people are familiar with.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So today we're going to be talking about your Bloom Sisters series. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your series?
Yeah, so the Bloom Sisters series was one I just wrapped up in 2022, and it's 7 books that follows the story of a family, and they have 7 children. There are 6 daughters and 1 son, so it's called the Bloom Sisters. And the son, Hawthorne, gets his story in book 1. And throughout the series, you follow the family, and each sibling gets their happily ever after in their own book along the way. So it's just a really fun, it's small town. They live on a farm. It's kind of like almost a tourist farm. So they have, an event barn so one of the sisters is in charge of the weddings, and they have a bed and breakfast. So one of the sisters is like renovating this house to be a bed and breakfast. And one sister does the crops, and she does like farmers markets and stuff like that. So each sibling has their little piece of the operation, and it's all how they interact and everything like that.
Oh, I love that. So as you read each book, you kind of get to see little portions of each of their lives and how they interconnect. So each book, are they all standalones?
They are. They're all standalones, and each book, it has the point of view of just that main character and their love interest. But, there are a few storylines that kind of carry throughout the series a little
Mhm.
bit because you see the family going through, family stuff
Right.
as you read. So they're best read in order, but if there's a specific type of story that somebody really loves, they're going to find it somewhere in the series. There's a marriage of convenience, and there's a second chance, and a brother's best friend, and all of those good things.
Oh, cute. So you can start anywhere, but you can also start in the first book. No,
Yes.
that's awesome.
The
And are
feedback has
they,
been as soon as you get to know one sibling, you're like, oh, I want to know this person's story, and I want to know this person's story. So you tend to kind of work your way through or
Yeah.
jump back if you started in the middle.
I that actually sounds like it's right up my alley. Like that's kind of the thing that I love to read. And I was looking at your covers online. These covers are adorable, so you guys should check these books out. They are really cute. So are they wide or are they only in Kindle Unlimited?
They're only in Kindle Unlimited, except
Okay.
paperbacks. Paperbacks are wide and audiobooks are wide. So you can get
Audiobooks.
the audiobooks anywhere as well.
Okay, sweet. So going on from there, you have these on YouTube? Do you have a
I
YouTube
have
channel also, right?
I do have a YouTube channel. It's small and it's still growing. And a couple of these books are on YouTube. So book one and book two are both available for free on YouTube to listen to. And as the channel grows, I hope to add more of the stories as we go along. And some of my other series are also available on YouTube.
Oh, absolutely. That's great. Okay, so we're going to add the link to your channel in the description of this video. So if you guys want to find it, you can find that in the description. That sounds so fantastic. Do you have a favorite in this series? Is there one that you've written that you just love?
Oh, that's like
No,
asking
it's
your
a
favorite
hard
child, isn't it?
question.
So there's probably two or three that I'm like, I just really, really love. The first one is actually book two in the series. It's called A Date for Daisy, and it is the bed and breakfast renovation story. And it's an opposites attract story. So she's like carefree, a little bit, super creative and lackadaisical. And she meets her contractor who is very rigid and regimented. And so there's a lot of me and my husband in this book. We love to do DIY projects. We've renovated 2 kitchens and 3 bathrooms, and like we've done it all.
Mm.
And so there's tons of really funny things in this book. And so it's one of my favorites. If you are like, I don't know if I should check out these books, I actually would start with that one. It's book two, but it's one of my favorites. It's almost on the brink of like romantic comedy, but nothing like over the top, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, that's
And
awesome.
then one of the other ones that I really love is book number 4 in the series is called Lavender and Lace. And Lavender is one of the younger sisters in the family. And this story is actually a modern day You've Got Mail story. So she's got like this online romance and then this working business relationship with somebody who she can't stand. And it turns out they're the same person. So it's really fun to watch that all play out on page.
Oh, I love that. That is so fun. So as you were describing the opposites attract, I was just thinking that is so my husband and me. Like we are not alike at all, and yet we kind of go together too. So that's funny. Those both sound so good. Oh, I love it. So you said you had it's kind of based on things that you're interested in with your husband. Do you find that um your life experiences help provide inspiration for your stories and give you ideas?
Oh, definitely. I think, I'm constantly talking to people or hearing them tell a story about something that happened. I'm like, I have to put that in a book
Yeah.
because, real life is better than fiction sometimes. And yeah, I love to pull little things. And I am the type of person who, when I get interested in a topic, I'll like go down the rabbit trail of like all the Wikipedia articles or like YouTube videos about random stuff. And so a lot of times those types of things make it into my books about, I wrote a story with a baker. And so I'm like, ooh, I like to bake. I can put in these little tiny details that if somebody doesn't really have that familiarity with the kitchen, they probably don't notice.
Mhm.
But somebody who does know how to bake or crochet or whatever will say, oh, I know that. Oh, she got that right. It's important. I
Yeah.
want to get things right.
Well, the details are important and people will point it out. Like if you, at least I've found that if you get something wrong, they're like, wait a minute. So
Hmm.
it's good
Yes.
to pay attention to that kind of thing. Oh,
Mhm.
that's awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit what's your method for writing a book? Like how long does it take? Do you plan it all out? Do you kind of pants and make it up as you go? What's your preferred writing style?
Yeah, I feel like I've tried it just about every method under the sun as I've figured out this whole being an author thing. And what I've landed on is that I don't like to plan it all out because then it takes the fun out of it for me. I like to discover the story as I go along. And so I really just try to get to know my characters at first.
Mhm.
I spend some time with them, just like, okay, what's your deal? What's your hang up? Why are you the way you are? And then I have generally a premise for these two characters and why they are going to end up together at the end. Because spoiler alert, they're
Surprise.
romances, so they're gonna end up together. And so that's generally what I do. I'll spend a day or two thinking about the characters and kind of laying out what their background is and where their arc, their character growth needs to go.
Mhm.
And then I'll start writing at chapter one. And depending on what kind of things in life get in the way with three boys who are under the age of 6, it can be
Oh,
a little bit
adventure. Yeah.
chaotic. But I try to draft kind of in a chunk of time. So generally 5 or 6 weeks I'll spend writing the actual first draft of the book. And it's actually pretty bare bones. It ends up on the short side, and then I go back and add in a lot of the details and layers to the characters and events and things before the final draft. So I put out about 4 to 5 books a year
Mhm.
generally. So that gives you an idea of my production speed, I guess.
No, yeah, that's great. That sounds a lot like my process too. Like I'll often just get the dialogue down first, and then I'll have to go in and add, character and setting and things like that afterward.
Mhm. I have a bad habit, I guess. I don't actually see anything in my head when I read or when I write. And so often
Yeah.
I'll get done with my book and I'll give it to one of my readers, and she'll say, "You haven't said anything about what these characters look like." Like, I don't even know what color hair she has. I'm like, I don't know what color hair she has.
Yeah.
So I have to go in and make sure, very diligent to make sure everyone can see what it's supposed to look like, because that's not something that I ever do naturally.
Yeah, I've heard of that before, but for me, I see it like a movie in my head. So that's interesting.
So different. Like, it's so interesting how everybody's so different. And
Yeah,
no
and
two writers do it the same.
oh, for sure. And that's so nice that you have readers and people who can help you out and point things out. I love that.
Mhm.
That's really great. Um, have you always wanted to be a writer?
That's a really funny story. No, I actually never thought I would be a writer. I never intended to be a writer. I was an engineer and I was very happy being an engineer. I worked in the steel industry for 6 years
Yeah.
out of college, and that was the plan. And then God had a different plan. And so we ended up, I left that job and we relocated. And when we got to Missouri and I thought about where I was going to work and started looking at jobs and everything, I kept feeling like this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And I had a half written manuscript on my computer from probably a couple of years before we ended up moving. And I just felt like I need to get that out and finish it and publish it. And so I did. And then the next one, and then the next one. And
And it
we
just
had more
kind of,
kids. And
yeah.
it just sort of happened. So yeah, it's, most writers I talk to, they're like, "Oh, I always wanted to be a writer. I always dreamed of publishing a book." And that was never, ever in my plans or anything. So it's pretty wild that that's how my life has turned out. But it's been so much fun and so rewarding to put books out to the world and then hear back from readers who enjoyed them.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I love that, how things just kind of fall into place that way. That is really cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been such a fun chat. Before we close things, I want to ask you, I have one more question. Do you have a favorite book of yours that you've read? Maybe one that's just completely influenced your life or just had a monumental impact on you?
Such
What's
a
your favorite book?
big That's a big question.
It is.
And even knowing that it was coming, I don't know that I have an answer. I would say one of the things that really changed kind of my perspective was when I was first introduced to like Christian fiction or clean fiction as a genre. And
Mhm.
probably the very first book I read was a Janet Oki, historical Christian romance. They're
Mhm.
like frontier, which is not my thing at all. But when I had been reading at, 15, 16 years old, like Nora Roberts and Danielle Steele and whatever romance novels my mom had on hand, it was really like, it was eye-opening to me to know that I could get the romance that my heart like really wanted, but I didn't have to get the um, the other material, the other
Yes.
content that I didn't need, especially at that age. But even now, I don't want that. And so they're not like my favorite books, but they probably have had biggest impact on me because once I discovered that this was out there, I could go find more and I
Right.
could go download more. And when I was in college doing engineering, which was so mentally taxing all the time, that was my escape, was like the free and 99-cent Kindle romances that I could download as a poor college student. And so I just read and read, and my roommates called it brain candy. And so that was what I did. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. It's funny because those Regency, like the Christian romances, that's actually one of my favorite things to read too. But I write some Christian, but I mostly do like fantasy too. So it's just interesting that it has nothing to do with what I actually write. But
I love fantasy. I just could never write it. That is a whole nother like area of imagination that I do not possess. So
it's
kudos
different
to
for
you.
sure. Uh, well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Really has.
Thanks to the viewers also. So if you guys want to find out more about Tara's books, head to the link in the description and head over to her YouTube channel. Make sure you guys subscribe. If you like this video, please hit that like button and leave a comment and say hi to Tara. And thanks so much for joining us. I'll be doing this again next week. So thanks, guys. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
later.